Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya Luria with TMC for Seniors, and we are going to dive into nutrition label literacy today, a guide to healthier choices. Mary Mellady is here. Is our TMC Wellness Director. Mary, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm really excited to sort of break down everything we need to know about nutrition labels. I'm sure that there are some things that have changed over time, and it's something that we haven't covered in a while. So thank you so much for being here.
Well,
You
thanks.
you do have an online audience that is joining us today, along with an in-person audience. So if you're watching from home, please feel free to leave any of your questions in the chat, and I will ask Mary those afterwards. I'll let you go ahead and get started, Mary.
Awesome. Thank you, Maya. Good morning. Good morning online and good morning to y'all here to this blustery morning. I feel like I should have a Winnie the Pooh quote, but I don't. Should have found one, right? Okay, so today we're going to talk about the nutrition label because we oftentimes want to make good, healthy choices, but then everything we see on a label confuses us, or we get bought into something we read on the front. And so we aren't really doing what we intended to do because we don't have a good understanding of what's on that label. But there's some things that we do know, and there are some things that the food manufacturers know we know, and so now they have become extra slick and tricky. And so we'll talk a little bit about that too. I don't really know what this is a picture of. I just thought it was kind of cool. So don't ask me what that structure is because I will fully admit biochemistry was not my strong suit. Okay, anyway, moving on. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the nutrition label. We're going to talk about what's changed, the front versus the back. This is my favorite conversation. Some of the nutrition terms that are often on labels and what they actually mean, lower in or fat free. What does that actually mean? We're going to break down what the actual panel looks like and how to read it. And then I'm going to go over a few fun facts with you that you may know, may not know. Okay, so let's get rolling. So over history, the nutrition label has changed. And it's kind of funny. I was like, has it really? Because I've been around a long time. And unless you actually look at it really closely, you may not notice. And actually, I should have put two comparisons up here. But they're very slight changes, but they're intended to be helping us be more informed about our food choices. So prior to 1969, information on food was only provided as a special dietary use. And so they weren't required to put ingredients or any kind of nutritional information at all. In 1969, they met and they decided that they wanted to start to work towards creating a label that manufacturers would have to provide truthful and factual information to the consumers about what food they were eating. In 1993, they started with serving sizes. They didn't have anything else on the labels. It was just the serving size. And then 1994 was really the big significant year for food labels. That's when they first started getting put on packages. And I should remember because I was in my nutrition studies right then, and that should have been like a big, wow. And I really don't. So it's really kind of sad that I don't remember when that really happened and they didn't make a bigger deal of it in our classes. But in 94, they started using the very first nutrition label. We revised it in 2016. And what happened with that in 2016 is they just added vitamin D and potassium. And then in 2020, we had another revision, and I'm going to go over exactly what that is, but it mainly was to address the idea of added sugars, because as a society, we became much more in tune with how much sugar we were consuming. And so food manufacturers are now required to separate on the label and identify what is naturally occurring sugar and what is added, what they're adding to that product. And there's something exciting coming that in 2025, it's been proposed. I don't know if it's actually passed yet, but they were going to put an actual nutrition little fact box on the very front of the label. So that would make it easier for us, right, when we're looking on the shelves at things, if we can start to pick out some of the really things that key nutrients that we're looking to either eat more of or eat less of. So That's the timeline. It's taken a little bit. And it's true with nutrition in general. Nutrition is a very slow-going science and art that every year we seem to learn something a little bit more. Like right now, we're kind of in this for the past 5 or 10 years in this growing field of how much our gut impacts our overall health. And so as we learn more, that's gonna influence in how much sugar impacts us. So as the course of the years pass, we are going to learn more about nutrition in this timeline. I think it's going to expand even longer. So what has changed, and so this is what has been significant in what has changed, is the serving size now is much bolder. It may not register, but when I looked at side by side, it is significant. Like this really stands out. Calories are larger. And the serving sizes were updated. So do you all remember maybe your parents' plates and cups and things? Everything was much smaller, right? What we served food on was a smaller size. And now we have to serve food on these really large dinner plates. And things that come to us in restaurants are huge portions. So they updated the serving size to reflect, I don't know if it's necessarily good or bad, but it's reflecting more of what we actually, the size of portion that we actually do eat versus what it used to be. And a side note, a portion size is not a recommendation. It is just used so that you understand for that amount of food, this is the nutritional facts that accompany that amount, okay? So it's not saying that whatever this particular item is that you should only eat 2/3 of a cup, okay? They also added in 2020, this added includes added sugar. So in the total sugar line, that includes all naturally occurring sugar as well as the added sugars. And then they had to split out that added sugar. So for this example, this product, and again, I don't really know what this product is, it has 10 grams of added sugar. So that means there's 2 grams of naturally occurring sugar. So if this were something like a milk-based product, maybe there's some lactose in there that occurred naturally as the addition of the milk, or maybe this is some sort of a fruit product that there was a little bit of real fruit in there. And so there's some naturally occurring sugar in that real bits of fruit. And then they changed some of the nutrient requirements. So as you can see, we now have vitamin D and potassium. That used to be vitamin C, and it'll come to me what else that was. But they pulled it off because we were getting plenty of vitamin C in our daily diet. Whereas a lot of people, and I don't know if that includes anybody in this room, but we're deficient in vitamin D. We get a lot of our vitamin D from the sun, and now we're all so good about putting on sunscreen that we are blocking that vitamin D source. We need to start to look for a little bit more in our food. And same thing with potassium. As the number of people that experience more and more incidents of cardiovascular disease, potassium is a key element in your heart health. And so we want to make sure that we're getting enough potassium in our diet. So that's why they added those 2 key nutrients. Any questions about that so far? You guys gonna be a quiet group? Okay, so my favorite part, the front and the back. It's kind of like the meme, what you think you look like, what you really look like, what you think you're getting, what you really get. So there's no regulation on the front of the package. People can put whatever they want on there. If they use some of the nutrition terms, then they have to use it has to abide by the right definition, which I'll go over in a little bit. But it just serves to persuade you, right? And have you ever noticed they put all the kid-friendly food really low down so that all your kids that you take shopping with you can actually see that very nicely and are very, very adamant about that's the food product that they need, whether or not it's good for them or not. So that front, no regulations, made to look pretty and want you to buy it and make you believe that it's going to be the best thing for you. The back it has to have the required information. So that nutrition fact panel is regulated. It's required to have the nutrients that they have set up and all of the ingredients and ordered in a specific way. And it is required to have the nutrition information needs to meet the portion sizes that they've indicated. I will say a caveat to that is I don't think the FDA actually goes and verifies any of that. So we're just hoping that they are doing their due diligence in it and being good stewards of what they put on the back of that package. So this is what I was talking about, is some of these nutrition terms. So a lot of these that we do see these on the front of the package, and this is for you, and that might be hard to read, and so that's why I gave you a printout. I'm not really sure how those colors look up there. But things like low calorie, that means it has to have 40 calories or less per serving. Something that says calorie free, that means it has to have 5 calories or less per serving. Something that is reduced means that there has to be 25% less. So it might say reduced fat or reduced sodium. So it has to be 25% lower in either that fat or sodium versus the regular product, right? So an example might be reduced fat crackers. So it has to have 25% less fat in those crackers than the original form of that cracker. Good source of needs to have 10 to 19% more of that particular vitamin as according to the percent daily value versus excellent source. So we often see excellent source of vitamin C. Have you guys seen those? And it's usually like on juices. Juice is a really great source of vitamin C. It's also a really high source of sugar. But so that means that it needs to have 20% or more of the recommended daily value. So those are just some things that if they do put this on the front of the packaging, this is regulated and this has to match the back fact panel that they're meeting certain requirements. So that's the only link between the front and the back, is if they make a claim like this. They could say, how would we say? They can't say low calorie, but they can say not as high or better for you or something like that. And there's no regulation around the better for you or this is.
What does light
mean? I don't know that one. I'll look that one up and let you know. I don't know the exact definition of that, but that usually is referring to a reduced sodium or fat amount or sugar. So let me look up exactly what that percentage needs to be. It used to be about 25% less, but let me look that up to verify that that's still what it is. Okay, and then serving size indicates how much is in one serving of a specific product, and they've increased over years. So again, I wanted to make the point that this is the first thing that you should look at, just so that you understand the rest of the fact panel and what you're basing your decision on is, okay, do I really eat a half a cup of this thing, or do I eat more like a cup? So then I need to double the calories and double the fat. And it's not meant, again, to be a recommendation that says you're only supposed to eat a half a cup of this product. It just is using it as a reference point, okay? And again, sizes have increased in the recent years, both on packaging as well as what we serve in restaurants and things like that. Okay, so at the very top of the label, besides after we go from, you see the serving size, then the next biggest thing is that calories. So calories are just a measure of energy, right? It's how much heat is produced when that particular product is burned at a certain degree over a certain period of time, produces this much energy, meaning that's would be equivalent to how much energy it would provide to our body. And that's not an exact science because we all burn calories a little bit differently, right? But it's a measure of energy. On the fact label, those calories is per serving, and the number of servings you consume is that number times the calories, provides you with the actual number. So half a cup, you eat a full cup, you just double the calories, right? Makes sense. And we always say calories aren't the only thing that you should be looking at, right? We also want to be looking at the sodium content, the fat content, the sugar content. You need to look at the whole label. But calories are something that we can be extra mindful of because essentially the number of calories that we eat does link to our weight if we're not using those calories up. So if we're eating 2,500 calories a day and we only need 1,200 calories, those extra calories are going to add to weight gain. Does that make sense? So it's just a measure to start to look at how much energy am I consuming versus how much energy do I use throughout a day. If you're very sedentary, likelihood, you're going to need fewer calories. This food label and all the facts on there with when we get down to the percent daily value is based on a 2,000 calorie per day diet. That is not a recommendation for the general population. It's a good number to start with, perhaps. That's for somebody that has zero understanding of what they might need, but everybody's different and everybody requires a different number of calories based on your age, based on your gender, based on your activity level, based on your what you have, based on your health, right? Some people have health conditions that are going to require extra calories to help a healing process. Some people have a very sedentary activity level, so they're going to need fewer calories. Men generally need more calories, lucky, than women, and it's because you generally have a higher percentage of muscle mass. Muscle in your body is more metabolically active, uses more calories, uses more energy than fat does. And women just naturally hold more fat than men do. So that is why. So that 2,000 calories is just a general base that they use to build that nutrition label on, but is not to say that is the calorie needs for every single human out there. Okay. So if you're really interested in figuring out how many calories that you need, you can talk with your primary care provider. You can reach out to a dietitian. You could probably even Google it online. There's some really great resources. Just make sure you are looking at a valid resource. I wouldn't say that WebMD or Google are your best choices, but there's a lot of information. I even look on Cleveland Clinic, has so much great resources. TMC has some great resources. We don't have that one. But you can look at Mayo Clinic, has a lot of great resources that you can look to if you're interested in calculating that for yourself. It's a fairly simple calculation. All right, the next down is fats. So it's broken down into total fats, and this includes unsaturated or healthy and saturated unhealthy fats. It includes the trans fats, and it includes cholesterol. Trans fats are still on there. Trans fats were supposed to be removed from all products, and they are in the process of that so trans fats are especially bad. Do you all know this? Why they removed trans fats?
No.
Okay. So trans fats are especially bad because they not only raise our bad cholesterol, they lower our good cholesterol. So they're like a double whammy for our heart health. And so that's why the food manufacturers have been required to start to remove that from their products. They were supposed to have already done that. So I'm not sure why they're still on the label because most things should say 0 grams of trans fats. But there could be some listed. So if it is less than, I believe, 5 grams, no, it is less than 1 gram, they can still put that in there, but it might still be in the product. So what you want to look for is in the ingredient label, anything that is partially hydrogenated is a trans fat. So things could still have a minor amount and they don't have to list that on the label. Let's see. They're not required to tell you how much unsaturated fat is in a product. So you kind of have to do a little bit of math based on total fat number and saturated fat number and to try to figure that out. Recommendations from the American Heart Association is that your saturated fat should be 10% of or less of your daily calories. Trans fats should be avoided. Let's see. And then actually, the American Heart Association recommends 6%. The FDA recommends 10%. So there's a difference there. We do need some fat in our diet, and that is for absorption of 4 vitamins. A, D, E, and K. Those are all essential for our body functions. And we need, those are fat-soluble vitamins. So we need to have some fat in our diet in order for our body to absorb those. And then cholesterol is also listed. However, this isn't always a great number to look at because newest research shows that cholesterol in food doesn't equate to raising cholesterol in our body. So there was an era where eggs were bad. Shrimp was bad. We can't eat shrimp, can't eat eggs because it's so high in cholesterol and that's going to kill us all. Move forward some years. Now we know that cholesterol in the food doesn't increase the cholesterol in our blood, or saturated fat is what is more linked to an increased levels of LDLs. Does that make sense? So that's why the egg made a lovely comeback as a superfood that we can now eat regularly. Okay. And don't be fooled by packaging that says cholesterol free. Cholesterol is only found in animal products. So I love when I see peanut butter and it says cholesterol free. Well, it always was. It better be anyway, unless you're adding some lard in there. So don't be fooled by thinking I'm doing something really good for myself by eating something that's cholesterol free if it always was cholesterol free. So be savvy and ask some questions when you're looking at the front of that label.
Now you see that on gluten-free.
Yeah, now gluten-free is the new one that everybody looks for. Gluten-free, and manufacturers add so many things to products that something that you might think wasn't, or that shouldn't be gluten-free. Let's take like soy sauce. Why would soy sauce have gluten in it? And it does, because it has a starch in there as a thickener. So anyway, the next down there is sodium. So we want to limit, and this is a general recommendation. Again, if you have high blood pressure, your primary care or cardiologist might want you to be on a lower level of sodium intake. But the general recommendation is to limit our sodium to 2,300 milligrams per day. So that's about 200 milligrams or less per serving. Or if you wanted to use that percent daily value down at the on the sides, then you're looking for less than 5% sodium. Does that make sense? So if you're looking at a product and you're thinking, I need to lower my sodium, you can either look at the absolute milligrams, or you can look at the percent daily value. And if it's less than 5%, then that would be a good choice for you. Okay. I feel like maybe I should have had a label sitting up there for you guys to be looking at. Next on the label is carbohydrates. And there's several different things under the carbohydrates. And fiber is the first one. So when they say fiber, this includes both the soluble and insoluble. There are two types of fibers. Soluble fiber dissolves in water, and it helps to regulate our blood sugar and helps to lower our cholesterol. Products that are high in soluble fiber are things like apples and oats and barley and beans, lentils, berries. The other kind of fiber is insoluble. That means it doesn't dissolve in water, and the benefit of insoluble fiber is it helps to prevent constipation. So that the insoluble fiber is what's going to add bulk to the stool so that it passes through more easily. And things that are higher in insoluble fiber are the wheat brands, brown rice, cauliflower, green beans, and seeds. In general, fruits and vegetables are going to be your primary source of fiber, and they generally all have a mix of soluble and insoluble. So I just gave you what might be a little bit higher in soluble versus insoluble. The recommendation is that we eat 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. That seems pretty low, but when you think about even just a regular whole grain bread that's made with whole wheat flour, I've talked to you about this, or 100% stone ground wheat flour, the fiber content in that is only 3 grams. So it's not very much, right, compared to calories. So getting that 25 to 30 grams of fiber does take some thoughtfulness in how you're going to do that. What helps that is if we look at the recommendation to make half of our plate vegetables and fruit. So at every meal and every snack, we think about half of whatever we're consuming, that's coming from a vegetable or a fruit source. That's helping with your calorie content, as well as your fiber intake, as well as a plethora of other fruits or vitamins and minerals that you're getting. Okay. Now sugar. Total sugar, as I mentioned, includes both that naturally occurring sugar as well as what they add. Added sugar substances are added in addition to any naturally occurring sugars. So my favorite example of this is yogurt, okay, or milk, right? So if you look at a non-fat, plain Greek yogurt, right, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head exactly, but close. The sugar total in that plain yogurt is going to be around 12 grams. They haven't added any sugar to that product, but that is naturally occurring sugar because it's made from milk. Lactose is a sugar that occurs in milk, right? It's the structure. It's not necessarily bad, and the same thing in milk when you're looking just at milk. It might have 10 grams of naturally occurring sugar. Then compare that to, and so this is really fun if you were in a grocery store, if you looked at a plain yogurt versus, let's just say vanilla even yogurt, right? That's probably your lowest added sugar yogurt choice besides the plain. That will have close to 22 grams of sugar. So they've added an additional 10 grams of sugar to make that sweet. Anybody know what a plain Greek yogurt tastes like?
I eat plain Greek yogurt every day. It tastes fine.
Yeah, because you're used to it. But if you're used to eating a fully sweetened yogurt, if you were to just take a spoonful of plain yogurt, you'd think you were eating sour cream. In fact, I use plain yogurt as sour cream replacement all the time. No one in my family knows.
Okay.
Unless they ask, why are you buying plain yogurt? I'm like, I don't know. You don't need to know either. It's none of your business. But if you eat it every day and you get used to that, and I love that you said that because I usually add something in my talk about learning to understand what food tastes like in its purest form. Eating your food naked starts to give you a really good understanding of where your palate is, of where your taste buds are. Like how many have ever eaten a plain potato, either white or sweet? Yeah, a couple of you have, yeah. They're really good. I mean, they're also really good with cheese and butter or butter and brown sugar, but they're really good by themselves, but most people wouldn't even recognize that flavor because we've gotten so trained to just add things to it. Much like the yogurts, we've gotten so trained to have some flavor added to them, right?
I put flaxseed in it.
Yeah, no, but that's great. So now you're getting some really great heart health benefits there too. So if you're looking at those two, you're getting a lot of added sugar. You're still getting some of the other benefits from the actual yogurt product itself, the protein and the vitamin D and the calcium. Just be aware if that's what it means. You can also look at milk versus chocolate milk. Milk already has naturally occurring lactose sugar in there. When you make it chocolate milk, you add a lot of extra sweetener and extra sugar to it. Okay, so just think about that when you're looking at products. Because our goal is to reduce the amount of sugar that we eat daily. We eat a lot of sugar. I eat a lot of sugar. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody else. I'm just going to own it. I eat a lot of it. So if I can save some on a yogurt I'm choosing or on some other product that I wasn't even thinking that they would add sugar to. So that's why this is such a helpful add to the nutrition label, is if we're really trying to be conscious about lowering how much salt we eat. I probably eat a lot more salt than I'm aware of because I don't have high blood pressure, so it's not something I'm concerned about. But if I were, like my stepbrother has high blood pressure, and I watch him, I'm like, you cannot be eating that. And I really want to show him the food labels, but I don't think I'm the person to do that. but so if you're concerned about a specific nutrient, that's when you're going to start to pay attention to those labels a lot more, right? So knowing what you're looking for can be very helpful. So again, with the sugar, we're all very concerned about sugar because it kind of came up in media that sugar was bad for us, and it is. I'm not saying that wasn't actually a good use of media pooling their power to spread a message. And so looking for those added sugars can be very helpful. But don't always assume that products that have sugar in them are unhealthy, because some of those products probably have naturally occurring sugar. Anything with fruit is going to be a naturally occurring sugar. I put the recommendations on the bottom here. For men, it's recommended to have no more than 9 teaspoons of added sugar per day. And for women, it is 6 teaspoons. And I'm going to tell you very quickly how many grams is in a teaspoon, because somebody is going to ask. It's 5.69. So about 45 grams of sugar for men and about 30 for women. That's such a ripoff. You men better be eating a lot of extra sugar for us women. Okay. All right. The bad side of this is that there's so many different names for sugar. And actually, food manufacturers have gotten so smart that they know, and this is a spoiler for the next slide, or a slide commit, but ingredients are listed in descending order, right? It's by weight. So the product that is made of a bread, the first ingredient should be flour, right? Because that's what you put most of into bread. And then there might be, some other grains they might add. If sugar is your next ingredient, that's the second highest ingredient they're using to make that bread. That better be a cinnamon roll in that case, if there's that much sugar. But manufacturers have gotten very smart and know we're going to look and say, oh, sugar is one of the top 3 ingredients. I better not buy that product. And that's what we used to teach in this class. Don't buy that product if sugar is anywhere in the top 3. Well, now they've started to use all these different things, all these different kinds of sugars to distribute the sugar throughout the ingredient list. So now sugar's nowhere in the top 3, 5, or even 10, because they're using so many different types that they can spread it out. Fig Newton, one of my favorite treats. Again, it's a cookie. It is not a cake. It is a dessert. And sugar used to be like the 4th ingredient. Okay, I'm okay with that. Now and that was it. It just had sugar. Now, if you look at Fig Newton, there has to be at least 5 other types of sugar in there. They're using, they'll say sucrose, and then they might actually put some molasses in there, and then they're going to use some beet sugar, and they might use some coconut sugar. And so they use all these different types of sugar to make you believe that, oh, it's not really that high in sugar because it's not listed at one of the top 3 ingredients. So that's why you need to compare both the nutrition fact label that tells you this has 10 grams of added sugar in addition to the ingredient label. Does that make sense? So these are all different names for the same thing. And sugar is sugar is sugar. And somebody is probably thinking, well, there's probably one better sugar, right? And my answer to you is the best sugar, anybody know?
Once you don't eat.
The one that you don't eat. The best sugar is the one that you can use the least amount of. So if you like your tea sweetened, and you put honey, and you only put a little bit of honey in there, but if you were going to use white sugar, you're going to dump like 2 teaspoons in. Which is better? Oh, honey. Yep. And I know the question will come about artificial sweeteners. And my answer to that is, we would prefer you not to use an artificial sweetener if you don't have to. But it can be a better choice, especially if you have diabetes. But your choice has to be smart. We would say that pink packet, saccharin is not the best choice. That something like a monk fruit, that's a better choice. There's a monk fruit. It's usually paired with, oh my gosh, this is not good when a presenter's mind goes blank. I'll come up with it. But so it's got to be your choice. We do not recommend that you're going to use that as your total source of sugar. But okay, monk fruit is usually paired with. No, that's not coming up.
Isn't that with the erythritol?
No.
I see it a lot of times with the.
So that's what that is a alcohol sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the sugar I'm looking for? I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Not aspartame. Stevia. Thank you. So stevia is usually paired with a monk fruit. I don't think monk fruit ever is sold by itself. It's usually kind of a combination of the two. The erythritol is an alcohol sugar and can have a lower impact on your blood sugar, but it also tends to have a higher impact on your GI, on your gut health.
What about heart? I've heard of heart also.
That's absolutely.
Yeah.
That too. And that's the problem with some of these artificial sweeteners is, well, they did a long-term study of saccharin, right? That causes cancer. Okay, well, that was when the rat was eating like 20 times his body weight. We're never going to do that, but it's still not healthy, right? If there's a chance that it can cause cancer, let's not eat that. And so you have to make your own informed decision about what you want. Stevia and the monk fruit have some long-term studies over in other countries that seem to have lower kind of risks to them. And so that's why that's the one that we would recommend if you are going to choose an artificial sweetener. Right? All right, so protein is on there. How many are on a low-carb, high-protein diet? Oh, good. So glad. Okay, so protein is important in our diet, right? And it's especially important as we age, because as we age, we need more protein to support our muscle mass. We just genetically, we lose more muscle mass, so we have to be more conscientious about to be sure that we're eating enough protein. So this would be something that you would want to look for on your label, is how much protein does this product have. It's essential for building and repairing tissue. So as we age, we might have a lot more tissue degradation, either from wounds or from surgeries or from something that we need that protein, right? It helps in enzyme and hormone production. It helps in weight management. And why I put that in there is it's kind of twofold. We find that in women, as we age, a little bit higher protein diet can help with weight management. And it has a relation to our change in our hormones. Additionally, it helps in weight management because protein isn't something that you're going to snack on. It's not something you're going to use as a comfort food generally. It's not something you're going to just mindlessly eat in front of the TV, right? Does anybody know somebody that eats meat as a snack? I do, but
Jerky.
He's weird. Yes, jerky. But you can only eat so much jerky, truly. My stepson sits with a bowl of pulled chicken and just eats it in front of the TV. I'm like, dude, you're ruining my whole talk. But that's okay. But so that's the other reason is if we are going to be on a lower carb diet and we're going to focus on a higher protein diet, that means we are more than likely going to eliminate a lot of the snack and comfort foods that are generally lower in nutritional density and higher in calories and sugars and fats and things of that nature. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. But we do see a lot of good results with women as we age to increase the amount of protein in our diet in relation to how much carbohydrate we're eating with regards to weight stabilization because of that hormone fluctuation that we have experienced. Does that make sense? The general recommendation is 8.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So you take your weight in pounds, divide it by 2.2, and then times it by either 0.8 or 1. I will tell you this is a very general number. It would be used as a base just to be sure you're getting enough. I would venture a guess that most everybody is getting enough protein. As Americans, we generally eat enough protein, unless you are a vegetarian or you have some other disease process going on where you're not able to consume or absorb or use protein. Okay. Again, if you want to know how much protein you should be consuming, talk with your doctor, talk with a dietitian. Any questions about that one? Yeah.
Should I wait till the end of the presentation?
No, go, shoot.
I was watching the Today Show yesterday, and they had a strength training person on talking to women about getting older. And she recommended 30 grams of protein per meal and 20 grams of protein for a snack. And I looked at my yogurt, and it has like 5 grams of protein.
Yeah.
I was like, how am I going to eat 30 grams of protein in a meal?
Yeah, you have to be very thoughtful about it. And a lot of, and I don't know if that's necessarily the best recommendation for you, but I think what you should take away from that is paying attention to how much protein are you eating currently at meals and snacks, and try to increase that a little bit. Just be aware. There's meals I eat that I'm sure I probably only get 5 grams of protein because I'm eating primarily fruit or something like that, right? And so I'm not doing a good job of pairing it with protein. A general recommendation is anytime that you are going to eat something, a snack or a meal, that make sure you're pairing your carbohydrate with protein, always. Never just have an apple. Have apple with peanut butter, have apple with cheese. Never just eat chips, have chips with hummus or dip chips in cottage cheese and salsa. Okay, something like that. So always think about, where am I getting my protein from in this meal or snack? I think the other key point to take away from that is having that protein prior to having a workout is important, and also following it up with having a good snack afterwards. If you're not going to eat a meal after you have a workout, then make sure you're having a good source of protein and carbs after you finish your workout. So that's what I would take away from that. The exact numbers, I don't think I'd buy that, because you're going to find some other person that's going to come in there and tell you it's 15 grams, and it's so individualized for you, your age, your health, your weight, your activity level.
How do you feel about those protein drinks that they sell like at Costco, you know?
I think that's a great way if you're trying to increase your protein intake. They're expensive, so you can do a lot of added protein. You could easily get 20 grams of protein in a snack with a yogurt that you added some nuts to, that you added some non-fat dry milk to, and that maybe that you added something else to, and made into like a parfait kind of a thing. Okay. The shakes, they're great. I'm not going to say that that's not useful for some people, especially if you're on the go and you don't have time to do a snack, or you're going to skip a meal, or you're going to stop at McDonald's instead. Have a shake. They're expensive, so that's why maybe you could come up with a different way through natural food sources. And also those shakes have a lot of extra ingredients in there, so if you're really trying to eat, some of them do, yeah. So if you're trying to eat a little bit more simple and eat more natural ingredients, maybe you create a shake yourself using a protein powder. And again, a lot of the powders do have a lot of sugars, but you can find unsugared and unflavored protein powders. I found ones that are just pure whey or just pure egg whites, and it's just dried. You could use that PB powder if you don't have any peanut allergies. So it's dehydrated peanut butter, so you could add that to a lot of stuff. And I don't think that there's a lot of added sugars or salts to that one too. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, she could look at her yogurt too, because mine's got 12 grams of protein.
Yeah. But so yeah, so if you had 12 grams of protein in it, and then you added some nuts to it, or you added, some dried peanut butter powder or something like that, you could get to that 20 pretty easily. Okay.
I notice that when you're talking about protein, you kind of steer away from meat products as opposed to vegetable products.
So that's not my intent. I'm more of a vegetarian than I am of a meat eater, but I don't not eat meat. It's just not something I prefer. So that's probably why those are my examples. But meat is a great source of protein. The beef jerky, I eat when I hike all the time because that's a good shelf stable. I guess my point with my problem with the meat is that you have to prepare it and you have to keep it refrigerated unless it's a jerky, right? Generally. So they're not as easy to grab as a snack. But meat is a great source, especially fish. We want you to eat. If you're not vegetarian, we want you to eat fish. It's so good for your heart. It's great for your brain. It is nutrient dense. So if you can, choose meat. And they can be easy to get. So I've used just packets of tuna and bring those to work every day. So there's easy ways to get that protein in a meat form. So I'm not saying meat isn't a good source of protein.
But from what I understand, you have to, is it red meat or something that you're supposed to avoid for your heart health?
Red meat. So we encourage you not to eat more than one serving of red meat per week. Okay. And it's more for your, it's not really necessarily about your heart health. It's more about your colorectal health. There's been a link to eating too much red meat to colon cancer. For your heart health, what you're talking about is red meat traditionally used to be much higher in saturated fats because we used to grill those steaks that were beautifully marbled, and man, they tasted so good. It was like you were eating butter and meat all wrapped together in one nice package. And all of that lovely marbling is saturated fat, and that is what's causing detriment to our heart. But now they now have many meat products that are lower in fat content than some of the ground turkeys. So sometimes when you compare ground meat to ground turkey, the ground turkey, if they're throwing the skin in there, might actually have more saturated fat than the beef choice. So you need to look at your label. Okay. Okay. Next. So then there's just the label. Down lower on the label is the information about vitamins, iron, potassium, calcium. They're all important parts. So what you're looking for when you're choosing these nutrients, and there's a % daily value next to all of these, is that these particular nutrients, we want to have a higher amount of because these are all important for our health. So at the lower portion of the label, I feel like I should go back. So at this lower portion of the label here, we want these numbers to be higher, whereas we want this number and this number and this number to be lower on that % daily value. Does that make sense? And for those online, I pointed to the saturated fat, the sodium, and the added or the total sugars. We want that % daily value to be lower, and we want the ones that are next to the vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium to be higher. Okay. The % daily value just tells the percentage of each nutrient in this item at this serving level that's of the recommended amount based on a 2,000 calorie diet. And again, 2,000 calories isn't the magic number for every one of us. All right. If I ate 2,000 calories a day, I would not fit into my clothes. All right. But for somebody else, my husband, he needs probably 3,000 calories a day. So he needs to eat more than this. So we're all different. So you need to find out what that number is for yourself. So this slide talks about the 5-20 rule. So nutrients that we should be limiting, such as that fat and the sugar and the sodium.
I was going to say you're on one slide.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, okay. I'll go back to the slide, but the 5-20 rule applies. So if that were the case, if we want to eat 5% or less of things like salt or sodium, saturated fat and total sugar, I don't think this product would make it, would it? And we want to have 20% higher or higher for the nutrients that we're trying to increase. So far, that's only iron and calcium. I'm really interested to know what this is. I should have done that out. But okay, so let me go back. Where was I? There. Nope, there. So there's the 5-20. So that's just something to think about. And it's not the exact number that I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on the idea that nutrients we want to eat more of, let's put fiber in there. Shoot for that percent daily value to be higher than 20% or closer to 20%. And nutrients that we want to be eating less of, let's say sodium, should be closer or below that 5%. Does that make sense? It's just a guide. It's just a way to try to help you. And again, this is all based on a calorie limit that you might not be following, but it at least is giving you a tool to understand, okay, where is this product in relation to B? Which is better, A or B? It's just giving you a comparison tool, okay? We already talked about ingredients, that it's listed in descending order by weight. So the first item is always present in the largest amount. And this is really going to be hard to read, but I put this on here because I loved this. I stole this from the Mayo, I think, or maybe Cleveland Clinic, one of the two, but I wanted you guys to have this. So this gives a really great overview of of this presentation. Is right here. I could have just handed this out and said thank you. But this is lovely. All right, fun facts. A calorie that is labeled calorie-free it just has to have less than 5 grams. 0 grams is less than 0.5 grams. Sulfites are considered an incidental ingredient and don't need to be listed in ingredients. So there's a lot of like dried products that use sulfites. And organic is not always healthier. So what do I mean by that? Is that there is such a thing as organic junk food. Have you been to Whole Foods or Sprouts? There's a whole organic section. They have cookies. They have Oreos. They have organic Oreos. They're not called Oreos. I don't really know what they're called. But they're still loaded in sugar and saturated fat. Maybe the ingredients that made those were sourced from an organic farm. But it's still not good for us. Might be healthier than the original Oreo. So if that's what you're comparing. But just, I guess the point that I want to make, and it also goes with this context is everything, is think about the whole product. You can't just look at the front, right? We know the front of the package may not be completely truthful. You can't just look at how much protein is in a product because, like the shakes you were talking about, are loaded with sugar. We can't just say we're going to eat a sugar or a low-fat product because that might be higher in extra added ingredients to make it taste better, whether it's salt or sugar. So you have to look at the overall package and compare what is your goal. Are you on a specific journey to reduce the amount of sugar you're eating, to reduce how much saturated fat you're intaking, to reduce your total number of calories, to increase your fiber? Whatever it is, use that label to help guide you and pick those products. Are you on a journey to eat foods with lower ingredients added to it? You don't care about the nutritional content. You just want to eat foods with 6 or less ingredients. That's a great goal. I think I love tortilla chips that only have corn and a little oil and some salt. I feel pretty good about myself when I snack on my chips and dip if I'm only eating a 3-ingredient chip. So, but those are really high in salt and they're fried. And so they're really not healthy. But that was my goal in that particular moment, is to find a chip that had some clean ingredients to it. So it has to be in a context that is useful for you. The information is there. It's just how you choose to use it. Okay? All right, I'm going to look up what the definition of light is, and we will go from there. Does anybody have questions?
We'll do online ones first.
Oh, we'll do online ones first. Okay. Okay, hang on. There it is. Sorry, Maya, you were waiting for that slide to know.
That's okay. No, we're all good. So I do have some questions that came in. One was about GMOs. So is it suggested that we avoid all foods or anything else that states it's a GMO product?
I will say that is a personal preference. Many of them don't have a difference in nutritional content. But that can be your personal preference if you are choosing to eat more clean, I guess is the word I'll use.
Okay. I have another question that came in asking about artificial sugars. Are any of them okay? Such as, stevia or sorbitol, is it, I'm not even sure, erythritol? Erythritol, I'm sorry. I think I got that one wrong. That one, my tongue gets messed up on that one.
I can't do that one very well either. So we talked about that a little bit in here, that it's our recommendation is to choose, if you're going to choose an alternative sweetener, that stevia or the monk fruit has some research behind it that seems to be a little bit safer than some of the other ones.
Okay, great.
And it has to be a personal choice too, because like for me, sorbitol upsets my stomach terribly, and it's pretty common. Stevia does a little bit, but not as bad. So I'll choose stevia over sorbitol.
Okay. And should we consider a vitamin D supplement if we use a milk alternative, such as an oat milk or an almond milk?
That will have to be between whoever asked that in their primary care based on their vitamin D levels that they should have checked annually.
Okay. And then are you familiar with any apps that can help you when you're grocery shopping to better understand your nutrition label?
No, but gosh, dang it. You people online are so smart. I thought of everything. No, but I will look for one and send it to you, Maya, and then you can send it back.
Okay, great. So this was great. You had so much information in there. I think if anybody was watching today and if you had any issues seeing any of the slides, please give us a call. We're happy to email out that slide deck for you as well so that you can see it. It looks fine in person, but I know that it was a little bit harder to read a little bit online. So I just want to offer that to anybody who might be interested, because you had so much great information there too, Mary. So I'm going to wrap up with our online audience. I want to thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you for any questions in person. So we'll see you again soon. Thank you, Mary.
Bye.
Thanks for being here today. We hope you'll join us again. We are actually back on this afternoon for Running Away from the Runs. That will be at 3 p.m. on Thursday, March 6th with Dr. Peter Lee. So if you're interested, please feel free to either give us a call in the office at 520-324-1960 if you would like to join us for that, or if you would like to come in person. After that, we will be back on next week, Wednesday, March 12th. It will be deciphering the 4 Ds: decline, depression, delirium, and dementia. And that is with Dr. Kathleen Insel. She is an RN with the U of A College of Nursing. Again, if you're interested in this class, please give us a call, 520-324-1960. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.